So once again, I'm Dr. Kyra Webb, and I have the pleasure now of introducing our guest speaker, Reverend Christina Garza. So Reverend Christina Garza was born and raised in Chicago, and this proud Chicagoan and Latina brings her whole self to the table. Cultural roots, street smarts, academic training, spiritual grit, and a bold bilingual voice for transformation. I don't know about you, but I'm already excited. Oh, Reverend Christina isn't your traditional reverend. Mm-hmm. She is a sacred disruptor with a mission to awaken, include, and ignite. With over 20 years walking the unity and new thought path, she blends deep metaphysical wisdom with real-world heart. Ordained in 2019 through Unity Urban Ministerial School in Detroit, she most recently served as senior minister of Unity of Nashville, where she energized a multi-generational, multicultural congregation with authenticity, joy, and divine feminine flair. Her ministry centers the often overlooked LGBTQ community, Spanish-speaking folk, and low-income families, and makes sacred space for healing, wholeness, and belonging. When she's not speaking truth in Unity magazine or holding space in soulful workshops, you'll find her dancing salsa with her wife, Veronica, feeding the neighborhood stray cats, and crafting dazzling diamond dot art with her daughter, Isabella. Whew. And in all she does, she radiates the power of purpose, healing, and holy fire. Please give me a hand in welcoming warmly Reverend Christina Garza.
Good morning, beautiful people. Wow, I hope I live up to that intro. A little much. Well, good morning. I want to first begin by thanking all of you for the invitation. I've been a couple times to Unity of Naperville, but it's been a number of years, so it's just such a joy to be back here. Thank you to Reverend Kitty, who is my colleague and friend, and I know we're praying for her and her rest, and just seeing so much light and love going to her, to the board and to the staff. Having been at a church and administered a church, I know the sheer amount of work that goes into that, so thank you for all that you all do. So it's cold, y'all. I just had to say that. I just needed to write. I just needed to just say that out loud. Even though I'm a Chicagoan, I realize I have lost a little bit of my Chicago cred because the snow kind of got me this morning. But I'm here. So today I really want to talk a little bit about what's happening in the world. And I want to talk about how we as a Unity New Thought community and movement can speak into that situation that's happening in this country and in this world. You know, coming home to Chicago, I was a little nervous in terms of what I would find, because I've heard there's so many things going on in this country and in Nashville as well, which is where I live currently. But here in Chicago, I think the situation with the politics and with much of what was happening with the immigration situation was really, it's really been egregious. And so it was hard for me to come home and hear stories from people about things that happened, things that they experienced. I had brunch with my two cousins yesterday and was sharing things about how people on their block were tear gassed when they came out to meet INS officials and such. And so just having a whole space for that, those stories, and yet transform them. A few weeks ago rather, I called to write a prayer, and then I was called to post that on social media. The prayer was for ICE agents. You heard me right. It was a prayer for the Immigration, Custom, and Enforcement agents. And I just did it. I often just follow what Spirit says to me without thinking about why or what. I've learned, and I continue to keep learning, to just trust that voice. And so I did that, not knowing what would happen. And when I posted it, the comments came quickly. Many were supportive, and many were not. And I didn't post it publicly initially. I posted it just to my friends list, if you will. And so the folks that were critical were folks that were my friends. And that was hard to see some of the comments that came through. Comments that said things like, I was being ridiculous, that I was silly, that I was naive. I was told, you're an extreme version of spiritual bypass. I was told that I was toxic positivity in motion. I was told, you're giving cover to oppression. I was told, your comment, this is an exact quote, your comment is stark evidence of the collapse of American morality. Ooh. Prayer for them, meaning the INS agents, prayer for them means nothing. And finally, one of the hardest ones as a unity minister to stomach, prayer has never proven to work. Well, I had a slew of comments and 48 shares of my post. Now, for someone who gets like 2 or 3 shares, I was like, what? Like that was incredible, but that was not my goal. I'm going to be honest with you all. When I saw the comments, we all have that alter ego, no matter how many years we've been practicing in unity, right? And my alter ego is called Project Tina, and she's from the Southside Projects. And so when I saw the comments, I immediately wanted to just respond and take off my hoop earrings, right? And take off my heels and get ready, right? But I don't do that. I can't do that. So I took a pause, took a deep breath, remembered who I was, and I chose to respond with curiosity. So I chose to engage the folks that were particularly critical and wanting to know where their comments really came from. I told someone, I asked them what was behind their comment, for example, in saying I was spiritually bypassing. What about that felt to them like I was spiritually bypassing? So we had some engagement with a few of those folks. Some of them positively engaged, and we went back and forth. One person was like, I am unfriending you, bye-bye. They unfriended me. Someone actually offered me an apology, and that was probably one of the most powerful moments that I've been through in social media, and just in engaging a person. The person acknowledged they really hadn't even read my post. How often has that happened? I once posted a beautiful picture to a friend, and it was her announcing that her mother had passed away. Not cute, right? When I'm saying all these things, I hadn't looked at what I was doing. We're always rushing. That person gave me an apology, and we are still friends. But most folks, regardless of in that interchange, were unwilling to really engage my point of view or see where I was coming from. And I think ultimately how I felt about all of this and what I said to one person was that I'm okay with being a dreamer. I'm okay with believing that change can still happen even when we have to challenge unjust policies, but we can do that without hating the people that are trapped inside those systems. I can be As a person of spirit, I can be both critical and compassionate. Does that make sense? As I later sat with that, the lesson for me emerged around all of this. Love without truth becomes just sentimental. Truth without love becomes cruelty. But love with truth becomes liberation. You know, our master teacher in unity is who? Charles Fillmore, yes. And Charles Fillmore and Myrtle Fillmore based their work really on Jesus. Many other master teachers, but primarily much of the teachings came from a Christian background, from Bible. There's much more to unity than that. But today I want to focus on some of that. So, Jesus, the teachings that are in the Bible are very much like master teachers from all over the world, all over ages, right? If we look at what Jesus says in Matthew chapter 5, verse 44, he says, "But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." In that moment, Jesus is not saying approve of what they do, nor is he saying ignore injustice, nor is he saying pretend everything is okay. But what we're learning through all of this in Jesus' teachings as a master teacher, he says pray, because prayer is transformative. Transformation is ours and theirs. In Luke chapter 23, verse 34, he says, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," as he is on the cross. Jesus said this while in an oppressive state. While an oppressive state is actively killing him, this is not bypassing. This is the example of spiritual rebellion. This is the example that resistance comes through non-hatred. Finally, another just scriptural example in Romans 12:21. "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil by good." This is not a naive statement. This is said to have been written by the Apostle Paul, whose words are under empire, under oppression, under surveillance, and under extreme and harsh violence. He said this, and he knew exactly what he was saying, what he was talking about. He was not being naive. This is sacred strategy. There is like this strange thing going on in our culture right now that has been really alarming, and I think this whole interaction with this post really brought me face to face with it. This idea that compassion equals weakness, or that praying for anyone outside of my circle or anyone outside of who we think is the oppressed circle is somehow betrayal, or that if someone shows empathy towards people working inside what we consider to be a harmful system to others, I must secretly be endorsing that system. But Scripture, but Jesus, but master teachers of every tradition remind us, you can oppose systems without stripping people of their humanity. You can hold accountability without holding hatred. You can be fiercely critical without becoming cruel. And you can let your anger be your catalyst, but not your compass. Is that making sense, y'all? This is spiritual maturity, and this is hard. Just because I'm a minister, just because I teach things, doesn't mean that it makes it any easier. This is an everyday. The struggle is real, y'all. Every day. Because it's easier to pick a side. It's easier to shout into the void. It's easier to be angry or to collapse into cynicism than to practice love. And some of us think we're practicing love. I have to call myself out many times, because we have to decide to do that all the time, even towards those who we feel are against us, or systems that we think are against us. Because when you do that, you step into a higher frequency, a truer identity, and a deeper discipleship. You know, when I went through this, I wanted to know what was behind the reactions. And I think I've come up with some things, and I think ultimately there's pain behind many of these reactions. And I'm not just talking about this situation. So I'm giving you an example, but, you know, fast forward to something in your life, or a situation with a person, or an issue, anything. It's just about any kind of challenge or confrontation or hurt or pain point that you may be in, where Spirit is calling you to practice compassion and curiosity and deep listening and heart opening. Because ultimately, whether it's this situation, many of the things that challenge us or hold us up are these. Fear. Number one, I think. We're fearful of what's happening. We're fearful of what could happen. We're fearful about how things might evolve. And we're fearful that if we show compassion, we might dilute the injustice or dilute the possibility of justice. There's hurt. We come from maybe traumatic experiences with immigration or other systems, or within our family, or something that happened in the past. There's that hurt that is ignited, that is triggered by an outside situation. There's that needing of protection. We're wanting to just feel safe. We're wanting to protect our lives, our families, our communities, our people who may not have a voice. And then, of course, there's always that mistrust. Yeah, we've seen where the church has used people before. We've seen how the Bible has been used, have we not? We mistrust faith. Whether we realize or not, there's something in us sometimes that even questions our own faith because of the trajectory, the history from where that faith has led. And there's fatigue. Gosh darn it, aren't we tired? There's so much happening every day. Last week I spoke at Unity of Chicago and talked about how it's like a Mexican soap opera, like a telenovela every day. You know, it's like, gosh, what is going, the poop show this morning I'm going to step into. Fatigue, we're tired, we're disappointed. So all of this is coming into these situations. And when we can remember this about others, we can remember this about ourselves, we can have compassion for ourselves and others. We can remember that we can honor their reactions without absorbing them, without taking them in, without making them about ourselves, without making ourselves like, I shouldn't have done this, or I did something wrong, or, kind of taking all of that in. The spiritual path, beautiful people, is really asking us to feel your feelings. We don't even know how to do that as a society. We really don't. We're not taught that as children, to truly feel our feelings and then to honor our boundaries. It doesn't mean accept anything and everything, but it does mean be honest about what you're feeling, move into those feelings, honor the boundaries where you need to say, okay, this is as far as I can go, and still keep an open heart. That is a spiritual path. That is what I attempted to do when I decided I wanted to create the prayer for ICE agents. It was not about bypassing. It was about widening the circle. It was not about saying everything is love and light, right? Because we've been accused of that, right? Let's just pray it away. God will take care of this. I'll just sit here eating my bonbons, That's not what that meant. It's not about don't worry about what's happening. Don't do something in your own capacity or whatever Spirit calls you to do something. But what I was attempting to do with that was to say, I see injustice and I refuse to let it harden my heart. That is what we're called. In Spanish, we say corazón valiente. Say that with me. Corazón valiente. Brave heart. A brave heart is not a naive heart. A brave heart is one that refuses to become the very thing that they resist. This is what we have to be careful of, that we get on our spiritual pedals, on our like little unity pedals, pedestals, that we get on these high horses about being better than someone else, because that's a very dangerous position, because we are then doing the same thing that we say that we don't want to do to others. It's a very dangerous situation. So today I invite you all, whether it's conflict about the city, the world, whether it's about anything, your homes, your lives, going into the holidays, and that uncle or aunt that just drives you crazy, right? We have those. Whatever it is, partnerships of sorts, co-workers. One thing I can offer you to do is be curious over being defensive. Wonder, where is this coming from? Why are they saying this? What is a hurt point for them over this? And then, of course, as I said before, practicing boundaries over bitterness. I hear you, but this is what I believe. I know that's your truth, and this is mine too. We have to practice compassion over collapse. I'm not going to shrink because someone dislikes my spiritual practice. I'm not going to get off of social media or think I'm a horrible person because someone has said something. We have to just be in that compassionate space. We have to have vision over fear. We have to be willing to imagine a world where prayer can be transformative. We have to believe that. We have to go beyond what we say on a Sunday service. We say it in a Sunday service, don't we? That we sing it about what we think, but we have to truly believe it. They say in the South, like deep in your bones. You got to feel it in your bones. It takes practice every day where we do that. We have to do that to be able to imagine a world where oppressors can be transformed, where people whose hearts have been hardened through their own lives can be transformed. If we don't believe that, then what is a foundation of what we do believe around love, around unity? We have to call the question on that and be in integrity with ourselves and with our spiritual principles. As I said, someone said to me I was a dreamer. And I said, yeah, I'm a dreamer. And I believe the world can be changed. And I believe I can change the world. Because systems begin with imagination. This is what we're taught in unity. Thoughts in kind produce into the world. Our imaginations, what we think matters. So systems begin in imagination. And by the same token, empires fall with imagination. New futures emerge because someone dared to believe that something could be possible. This is the only way that we have advanced as a human species, because someone dared to say, I think that can happen. I think that is possible. They dared to dream. We see that. Where have we heard that? I have a dream. Martin Luther King. The dream of Mahatma Gandhi. The dream of Desmond Tutu, who sat in a prison for over a decade and still had love in his heart and said, if I have hate when I walk out of those prison doors, I'm paraphrasing here, but if I have hate when I walk out of those prison doors, I'm still in prison. We have to remember that. It starts with the dream. Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Dolores Huerta, Rigoberta Menchú. You and I are all spiritual descendants of dreamers. And mi gente, listen, my people, listen. Dreaming is not avoidance. Dreaming is strategy. Dreaming is prophecy. And dreaming is survival. We have to be able to have those dreams and see that, to be able to make it to another day at times when times are difficult. Jesus knew this. Jesus confronted systems, temple corruption, empire violence, exploitation of the poor. He flipped tables. He broke rules. He defied Rome. He challenged religious gatekeepers. And he also saw everyone, every person as redeemable. Every soldier who pierced his side, even the tax collectors of the empire, even Peter when he betrayed him, and even Judas when he sold him out. Jesus never confused a person with the role they were stuck in. He saw the divine spark, even when it was buried or distorted or forgotten. As dreamers, all of us practice the spiritual art. Let's say this together. Would you play with me for a little bit? I can challenge the system. I can challenge the system. Together. I can challenge the system. And still bless the person. And still bless the person. I can hold accountability. I can hold accountability and hold compassion. And hold compassion. I can honor the injured. I can honor the injured and honor the humanity and honor the humanity of the one doing the injuring. Of the one doing the injuring. This, beautiful people, is what I call grown folks spirituality. Does anybody remember, y'all are going to think I'm crazy, but Spirit speaks to me in songs sometimes. Do y'all remember the 90s song by Salt and Pepper called Push It? Push it, push it good. There's a lyric in there where they say, this dance ain't for everybody. Who knows this? Only the sexy people. Only the sexy people. So it says, so all you fly mothers, dance, I said. You all sitting here, you all are the grown and sexy people. You all are called to dance. This is not for the faint of heart, but this is the reason why you have been called to this iteration of life. You have been called here to live in this polarized moment where anger feels easier than nuance. But it is people like you. It is people like you, people who can pray for ICE agents and immigrants alike, people who bless the wounded and the wounding, people who hold truth and tenderness at the same time, because all of us, all of you are the bridge. All of you are the spiritual medicine that is needed at this time. I want you all to hear me. Everything that we bring to this world every day is spiritual medicine, or it can be spiritual toxicity. What do y'all want to bring? Spiritual medicine that can bring light and love into this world. What we are doing, being dreamers, is not ridiculous. Being dreamers is dangerous in a beautiful way. We must cultivate this dreamer theology as unity practice, as we hold both justice and compassion in the same breath. Because as I said, compassion is not bypassing. Compassion is disruptive courage. It's that corazón valiente. It is that compassion as rebellion. And love, real love, doesn't make you weak. It makes you unstoppable. Who's ready to be unstoppable? Who's ready to love up this world in a way that creates true transformation? Do you believe in your unity principles? I don't. Yes. We believe in our unity principles. Love without truth becomes sentimental. Truth without love becomes cruelty. But love with truth becomes liberation. So all you fly mothers, dance. Dance, I said. Thank you. So let's take this into a time of meditation. And I'm going to invite everyone to just get comfortable where you are. Take some beautiful, deep cleansing breaths as we do this sacred dance of meditation together. Take some beautiful, deep cleansing breaths. Breathing in and breathing out. Allow yourself to even vocalize that, no matter who's sitting next to you. Allowing that breath to just breathe you to just... And we call in that one presence and that one power and that one wisdom that lives and moves and breathes in us as us. We call in the sacred energies of life to be with us in this time of meditation and to open up our minds and to open up our hearts and to open up our spiritual core to give and receive. Breathing in and breathing out. Relaxing and letting go. Opening and receiving. And this morning we call forth that sacred word. We call forth that prayer that is transformation in action. We call forth the vibration of the words that ignite the imagination and that bring forth the reality of the dreams. Divine Creator, source of all love and life, we lift up today the men and women who serve as ICE agents and immigration officers. They hold great power in their hands, power to protect and power to harm. We pray that you soften their hearts, illuminate their minds, and awaken their souls to see each person not as a case or number, but as your beloved child. Someone's mother, father, daughter, or son. May compassion be their compass, mercy their daily practice, and justice their sacred duty. Let them remember that every person they encounter carries a story, a home, a hope within them. Let no one be dragged, caged, or torn from family in the shadow of fear. May pregnant women be treated with tenderness. May parents be allowed to hold their children close. And may every decision be guided by the truth that dignity cannot be deported. Spirit of love, touch the hearts of those who enforce the law so they may serve with honor and humanity. Remind that in serving this nation, they also serve you, the one who commands love, mercy, and respect for all creation. Grant them the courage to see through the eyes of empathy, to imagine what if this were my own spouse, my own child. May that sacred imagination change the way they act, the way they speak, the way they see. May peace reign where fear once ruled, and may your divine light transform hearts, systems, and souls. May my divine light, may our divine light transform hearts, systems, and souls until love becomes the law of the land. Breathe that in. And hold space for compassion and love. Hold space for compassion and love for yourself. Hold space for compassion and love for those who are challenging you at this time, whoever or whatever they may be. And we allow the spirits within to magnify that place of peace, to magnify that place of possibility, and to magnify that place of power. knowing that there is only good and there is only God. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen.